Hello friend, spring is here in New Zealand. That has nothing to do with what we're doing today, but I just thought you might like to know. So today I am here to bring you another gift idea. It is cheap and it is easy and anyone can do it. Today we're going to be making this little covered notebook and matching pen. So the first thing you're going to need is a notebook, and I'm using one with a flip cover just because they're the easiest type to work with. You can work with another kind if you want, but these ones are pretty cheap to pick up from a stationery store, so one like that is awesome. The second thing you're going to need is a pen, and it's helpful if it's round all the way around so it's easy to cover. And I actually chose a mechanical pencil, that way the person doesn't even have to sharpen it and ruin any of the design on it, which is pretty cool. Then you're going to need something to cover the notebook and pencil with, and I've chosen an old hymn book which I picked up in a charity shop for about 50 cents, which is pretty cool, and I chose it because the pages are nice and thin, and that's really helpful for the kind of thing we're doing today. But you can use newspaper, book pages, craft paper, whatever you want to cover your notepad. You are also going to need some sticky back plastic, and hopefully yours isn't as wrinkled as mine and will be a lot easier to work with. How I love making life more difficult for myself. Then you're going to need a quote, and it can be anything. It can be something that sums up the relationship between you and your friend or whatever you want. I've chosen a music quote because I'm using hymn pages, so it kind of just ties the whole craft in together. Then finally you're going to need some PVA glue in a cup or on a plate or wherever you want to put it, and a brush to brush that round with. So the first thing I'm going to do is cover the front page of the notepad, and I'm going to be covering it up to this line. So I'm going to start by using the natural line of the page on the hymn book, that straight line, that straight edge, to line up very carefully with the top of this notebook. As you're covering the front page, make sure that the pages stick over the edge of the page so that you can fold them round onto the other side, if that makes sense. Also, as you're sticking down the pages, brush a layer of PVA glue on top of them just to make sure that all the edges are stuck down fully. It'll dry clear, so no worries there. So once I've done that top edge, I'm just going to go ahead and decorate the rest of the front of the notebook, and I'm going to use plenty of glue and make sure that everything is really flat and pretty, and I'm sticking the pages on the right way up, the wrong way round. I'm just tearing strips off, and I'm tearing them so they've got a soft edge all the way around so they all kind of blend into one another. Once that is dry, I am going to turn it over and I'm going to start on the other side. So I'm just going to start by putting a bit of glue down and folding over those pages. Again, I'm just going to brush a thin layer of glue over the top of the pages to make sure that they're all stuck down really well, and I'm just going to go all the way around and do that with all the pages. Once I've done that, I'm just going to fill in the gap in the middle. So once again, I'll need to use a straight edge at the top, and then I am just filling in the rest of it with little rip pages here and there. While that's drying, I'm going to start on the pencil. So I'm going to use the straight edge of the page to do the two ends of the pencil, and I'm just making sure that I apply plenty of glue before wrapping it round. And then once I've got enough page on there, I'm just going to tear off the end and make sure that I put plenty of glue on there. I'm brushing glue over the top again just to make sure it all stays really flat. Then I just carry on to do the rest of the pencil, and once I'm finished covering it, I'm just going to brush a load of glue on top to make sure that it's all smooth. Finally, I am just smoothing around the pencil with my fingers to pick up any excess glue and just make sure that all the edges are stuck down properly. The next thing I'm going to do is cover them in sticky back plastic, and you don't technically have to do this with the notebook at least, but it just protects it in case anything gets splashed on it. It just makes it last a bit longer. With the pencil, it's probably a little bit more important that you do this because it's going to be used by someone's hands and you don't want all those edges peeling up or anything. So I am just measuring the end of the pencil in order to cut the sticky back plastic to the right size, and once I've done that, I am peeling back the long end of the sticky back plastic. Once I've lined that up carefully on the pencil, I smooth that down before slowly starting to roll the pencil around, keeping on smoothing as I go and just taking my time about it, making sure there's no air bubbles trapped in there. Once you reach the end of the sticky back plastic, just make sure that everything is stuck down nice and tight. And then you're done and you can move on to the notebook. So with the notebook, you'll obviously need a larger piece of plastic, and just make sure that the ends of the plastic are long enough so that when you fold it over, they're going to overlap, if that makes sense, so that you're covering both sides of this notebook with one piece of plastic. So you just need to make sure it's long enough. Once you've cut your piece of plastic to fit, you're just going to roll back that top edge, line it up with the part of the notebook that you've covered, and then just slowly start bringing it down, rubbing out the air bubbles as you go. And again, no need to rush this part, because you just want to make sure you get a nice smooth finish. Once you've done that side, just go ahead and flip it over. Now there's probably a much cleverer way of doing this part than the way I'm doing it, but I am just folding over the two long ends and just sticking those down really well. And then I go ahead and I cut the two corners off the end flap that is left. I then fold this flap over, and I'm just going to secure it in place with another square of sticky back plastic. So again, just taking my time to get this really tight with no air bubbles. Once that is done, it is pretty much invisible. It's a pretty flawless finish and your notebook is complete. The final thing I'm going to do, and again this is an optional step, is I'm just going to go ahead and stick the quote in the first page of the notebook. You could just as easily hand write a nice note to the person you're giving it to, but this is what I've decided to do. And with that, your notebook is complete. So here's what it looks like. It's all nice and smooth, and as you can see, it has a nice sheen to it in the light. This is the finished notebook with the pencil, and that is your gift finished. As I said, I've also covered different kinds of notebook with this. So this is just a paperback double-sided notebook. It's a little bit more tricky, but it gives a really nice finish, and I sell these in my shop. I've also before covered a hardback notebook with just pages from a book. This is a little bit more tricky and just has more to it, so I don't know, I wouldn't recommend. Anyway guys, I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and I'll see you next time. Bye!